Thanks, Alice. That was great. So first, we'll start off with some questions of clarification. So these are specific to Alice's HUST or her any manifesto points she has. So if anyone has any specific questions they'd like to make, just either type in the chat or just unmute yourself. That'd be great. No? Okay. So we'll move on to general questions now. So general questions have to be made to both, have to be applicable to both Alice and Ron. So they can't be specific to Alice. They need to be questions that both Alice and this mysterious figure, Ron, could answer if needed to. So if anyone wants to either raise their hands or unmute yourself or just type in the chat your question if you don't want to be on the recording, that'd be great. Okay, Catherine, do you want to just unmute yourself then?
So over the course of this year, we've seen a massive decline in student mental health, and we faced more serious mental health issues than we have in any other year. What would you do as president to champion improving the mental health of our students across all 3 common rooms?
Yeah, so I think it's a really important issue, and it has lots of different levels. I think people underestimate the strength of the welfare of the college and what it does. I would definitely seek to further support that wholeheartedly, in terms of distancing, and when we can, getting the drop-ins back and up and running as soon as we can. Also, things like signposting is really important. Signposting people to the counselling service at the university, talking changes and stuff like that is really important as well. And I suppose in terms of the big picture, as I was saying about student life outside of academia, it's really important that we do continue to provide opportunities where people can express themselves out of their subject or get away from their lectures. So kind of supporting that in any way we can, I think is really important as well.
Great. Yeah, so the raise hand function isn't working right now. But if you've got a question and you want to speak, then please just type in the chat and I'll read your name out in order. So I think the next question we had was from Molly. So Molly, if you want to take it there.
Thank you. So every year, the exec and the student body discuss how we get involved with the local community. And the local area has been hit hard by COVID this year, particularly in comparison to other places in the country. How do you plan to engage with the local community when restrictions allow?
So the first thing that springs to mind to me, and that would be happening this year, is Lumiere. I think 2 years ago, when Lumiere happened and the college did nothing, was such a missed opportunity. And I know that there's security issues, but I really think that it was such a waste, and I would love to do something for Lumiere this year specifically. In terms of encouraging students to get out there and get involved, I found that when I was looking for something to do, there was not a lot of awareness of how much there is to do in Durham. Whether it's going through the community outreach officer in John's, if there's a wider sort of group activity going on, then that's great. But also people do like to sort of step away and do their own thing, and that's also really great. But there's not a lot of information about what you can do. So maybe if it's just providing a leaflet of how people can get involved, that would be really useful. But also engaging the community doesn't have to mean going out and volunteering. It could just mean going to support, the Gala Theatre, or going and showing your face in a cafe or something. It just means, being out in the community. So hopefully, if things get better, I would say that we could push for that as well.
Great, that's fantastic. So next to ask a question was Gabriel. If you want to unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, so how would you represent the interests of students with disabilities in the extracurricular environment or wider student experience? What ideas do you have?
I think in terms of disabilities, it's really important anyway to make any of our events really accessible. I think working with the disability welfare rep is really important to do, because a lot of the time people who don't have disabilities don't even realise that some events are disableist and things like that. I think as well, looking at what sort of the wider Durham community is doing to support students with disabilities, signposting again as to where students with disabilities can get support is really important as well. So yeah, I think just being open to suggestions and being open to signposting.
Great. So I think next was someone from Horton. So if you want to mute yourself.
Hi, that was me.
No problem.
You mentioned that you were planning on campaigning for a reduction in tuition fees, given that we haven't had the university experience that we would have expected this year. Your opposition's argument would be that that money is either going to have to come from the university, in which case they would have to pay their staff less or potentially lay them off, or it would have to come from the government, who have obviously already spent vast amounts of money on vaccines and on equipment for the NHS and on paying low wage workers and stuff like that. So what would your arguments to them be that we're important, and who would you target this at? Would you go to the university and try and get the reduction from them, or would you kind of target the government itself and ask for the money to come from them?
Okay, I'm not sure Ron would be able to answer that question, but I'll answer it anyway. I think when I say that, what I mean is if there is a push to campaign for that, which there will be, because, you know, it's a really important issue, I would get on the back of that, whether that means being in talks, in discussion with the SU, or highlighting things like petitions to our own students. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I have a solution, because sadly there's not. But I think that even just raising our voices about it is really important, just to know that we're not going to go down without a fight, because sometimes just showing up is as important, and asking for change is as important. So I would say that.
Hi. Yeah. So I presume that was a question of clarification, and because we couldn't obviously do the raise hands, I just allowed it anyway. So yeah, sorry to catch you off guard there, Alice. Yeah, so the next person was, I think, Lewis Eden to ask a question.
So Alice, as you know, Alice and Ron, as you know, in my role, I have been seeking further integration between Cranmer and Johns. Alas, COVID has struck its wicked wand. What things would you seek to do to help bridge the chasm that has opened up between Johns and Cranmer over the last academic year?
Yeah, I think this is a really important issue, and it always comes up. I think sort of at a base level, always being open to communication. I mean, that's an obvious answer. But I think when we can, shared events are also really effective. I know that we had the Shrove Tuesday event last year, which was really good. But even secular events as well, with, you know, Cranmer being involved in our balls and things like that is great. So yeah, I think as well, just pushing for more, in terms of the John side, pushing for more clarification at an early stage as to what Cranmer is, so that there's not that divide from the very beginning, is something really important to tackle. I said that I was pushed to make a professional video about the SJCR, but maybe we could do the same for Cranmer and the CCR as well, to show something that could, you know, be circulated. Would be great. And also the godparenting scheme was really good, and that was definitely a step in the right direction. So maybe something the same as that.
Great, fantastic. I think next person to ask a question was Molly.
Yep, hello, it's me again. So as Catherine mentioned, mental health has been a big issue amongst the student community. But having been the second COVID president, I know that it can be quite isolating. How would you support your own welfare during your time as president?
Well, there's a lot of things I do to make sure that I have time for myself in the day or in the week. I juggle a lot of stuff anyway, so whether it's just making time for that chat with a friend or a Zoom call or whatever, or doing anything, reading. I'm not gonna tell you what I do to relax, but I'll make time, don't worry.
Great. I think the next person was Thomas.
Hello. So one of the points mentioned in the hosts is about engagement with alumni, and one of the things we've been looking at recently, and if you read the summary of that report, you'll notice there's a comment about looking at alumni as a source of funding for future SJCR activities. So I'd be really interested to know what sort of things candidates might be looking at regarding increasing communication with alumni and sort of what that might look like.
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep touch with alumni. So whether it's just in email form or whatever, that would be great. I think it's kind of, in terms of a more kind of pressing issue, I think it's really important we don't lose the alumni, that our most recent alumni who might not have had the best experience of their last term at Johns because of the pandemic. We don't want to lose those people. So maybe trying to focus on our engagement with them and our communication with them. I think as well, when we can, putting on events for alumni. Everyone loves to have a reunion with their year, 10 years down the line. So I think stuff like that work really well, and it's there that we can gauge interest. Also, in terms of specific careers, the Eagles Talks are great, and I think that they're a way to really sort of specify our audience in a way. So I think we could use them for that as well. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. I think next is Antonia.
Hiya. For students who received their degree from Durham in July, we were promised that we'd be, invited back to college and involved in events and everything for this year. But obviously, doesn't look like anything will be near normal this summer, to be honest. Do you have any ideas of how that could happen next year if things were back to normal? Would that be something you would help to do, maybe for the people graduating this year as well, just because they missed out a lot of their university experience and celebrations?
Yeah, I think, as I just said, I think the people who've graduated more recently are going to be feeling the brunt of this the worst. I would definitely push for some sort of event. I know that if I was in like your shoes, I would definitely want something. So, whether that's going to have to be, a year or 2 years down the line, I think that it is something that should be put into place because it's only fair. And it would also be a great opportunity for those people to be able to, get back and reminisce about the time that they did have rather than the time that they didn't.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I think Will has a question next.
Hi, Alice. Yeah, and Ron as well, but clearly, sadly, there's no one there for Ron. So a lot of feedback has described the large amount of power that the DSU holds when communicating with the higher university, despite the fact that many students actually feel a greater affinity to their college and JCR. How would you foresee your role working with other JCR presidents to ensure that JCRs have a strong voice and to make sure that John's students are strongly represented to the university despite our small size?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I think the kind of power dynamic between the SU and the colleges is definitely something to be debated. Yeah, I can only say that I would definitely shout for the issues of John's students. I've had experience in the SU environment before, and I know how they want the JCRs to behave, and you know, whether or not the time calls for it, you know, we'll see what we can do. I think the other JCRs, you know, there's a really strong kind of sense of I don't know, brotherhood with the other JCR presidents about this issue. So whether the SU will, you know, listen to the JCRs, I can definitely confidently say that as president, I will definitely speak up if something is not working. I will not just sit there and take it. So yeah.
Okay, great. Libby, yes, there's certainly more time to ask a question. So you feel free to unmute yourself, ask away.
Okay, thanks. My question is just about like people in first year. So I'm in first year at the minute, and obviously I think, I know everyone's been hard done to by the COVID situation, but I think we're probably like the year that could be agreed to be the ones who are worst off. We've literally had like no lessons in person. We didn't really get freshers week. We've had one formal, and even then it wasn't like a proper formal. So what would you propose for next year? Say that restrictions were lifted and more things could happen in person by September, or even sort of in the first term. What would you propose to ensure that the people who are in first year this year actually get a feel for the John spirit and actually get to feel like a part of the community?
Yeah, I think that if, you know, everything went really well, and, you know, the vaccine worked and everyone was vaccinated, then we could return to normal. And I think that we would be putting on events as soon as possible. So that would definitely be something that you could get involved with. In terms of your year specifically, I wouldn't disregard the idea of something where it's just your year specific, because speaking to freshers, you know, in my own bubble, it's become apparent that you guys don't even know your year, which to me is just kind of just really tragic. And I think that there definitely needs to be something which just targets you guys, and lets you just mingle, if that was, you know, if we were in a perfect situation and that was possible. I mean, until then, I think we can only push for what we can do in our capacity, and in the situation we're in. And whether that means, you know, trying to like just keep morale going just a bit longer until we can do those things. But yeah, I definitely think that that would be a great idea if we could do something just specific to your year.
Great. Does anyone else have any more questions? Because there's no more in the chat. So if anyone wants to ask a question, please put in yes. Okay, Lewis.
A bit more relaxed question this time, Alice, and Ron. So each of the last presidents have had one thing in my mind that cements their time as president. Kara's been alpacas, Joe has been the Constitution, and Molly, it's been COVID. Mm-hmm. If COVID is no longer a thing when you take office, or is less of a thing when you take office, what would you hope your last impact on the SJCR and John's would be as a consequence?
I think, I mean, if things went well, I'd love to be remembered as the party president, you know, that would be great, where everyone just had a good time. But if not, and, you know, a bit more seriously, I really do, I'm passionate about campaigning for people's issues. So, you know, I would like to be seen as the president who really did get the voice of John's out there.
Great. We have another question from Molly.
Hi, both candidates. As president, you are one of the internal trustees, along with the other vice presidents and the treasurer, and you have the externals, and you have the power to make decisions without the external trustees. But how would you lean on them, both in your handover if you won and going on throughout your year?
I think that the external trustees, are really useful for in terms of about sustaining. I think they'll be a great source of information if ever I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I think that as well, their expertise and experience of the world beyond sort of student life is invaluable as well. So I definitely would take their advice with the utmost seriousness. And yeah, I would definitely listen to what they had to say and communicate with them openly about what I think John's students want and what their suggestions would be.
Great. Okay, so we have Will again.
Hi, both. What's the biggest thing you've learned through your time in John's, whether it be from people or from the SJCR, and have your opinions developed on anything, like your favourite potato or anything similar?
I mean, I suppose, to be honest, when I say about the whole plastic cutlery and sustainability thing, you know, that's a genuine thing, the issue I've had for 3 years. As a fresher, you know, I would be in the dining room and they'd have one bin and I would be so annoyed about what was going on. So I think that having gotten angry about that and then kind of learning about, you know, maybe this can change, to now actually being able to maybe, you know, say that, oh, I actually might be able to change this, that's quite exciting for me, because I think that has been the one thing that has actually driven me to want to change something in college. So that's a bit sad, but that's what I would say. Recycling. Is that sad?
Sorry, I missed that one. Next is Thomas.
Hello. I hope this doesn't just duplicate what you said 10 seconds ago, but so in previous years, it's been difficult for presidents to accomplish everything on their manifesto. And this isn't really surprising, you know, things go wrong, there's circumstances outside your control, and also at the end of the day, you're trustee and you're bound by the decisions of the trustee board and the sort of priorities that arise during your time in office. So if you could do one thing, if you could make one change to John's or the SJCR, you know, what's your number one priority? And it could be from your manifesto, or it can be something more general and bigger, whichever you like.
So I think in a kind of, if I could have one wish, the sustainability thing would definitely be my one wish, like the push for more recycling in college. I think that would be my wish. But if, you know, there was a situation where we had all the talks and, you know, Alison was not budging on the issue, then I think that definitely something I could do is the video. I think that there needs to be a video or something that we show students that can be reused and reused for, you know, up to 5 years to come, something that is going to be substantial. And I hope that there would be nothing in the way of getting that done. So that's kind of two things, but you get what I mean.
Great. So we have another question from Horton.
Hello, Mia. In the candidate's words, how would the candidate describe the job of SJCR president?
I think the president is someone who, you know, leads the SJCR in terms of the obvious description, but I think they're also someone who anyone should be able to approach and ask a question about anything. I think if no one in John's knows anything about anything to the SJCR, they should know that they can go to the president and then from there be signposted to the correct place. I think it's really important for the president to be someone on the ground, someone approachable for that reason. So yeah, and from there, things fall into place. There, you can get the president can get more engagement going, and yeah, listen to students and things like that. So a student maybe.
Fantastic. So do we have any more questions? Because there's none in the chat. If you want to have a question, then please just type in the chat. I'm keen for everyone to sort of ask away as many questions as they need, because I want everyone's voices to be heard, and so that everyone can ask what they want to ask. So if you have a question, please just type again. Okay. Yeah, Molly, go ahead.
One barrier I think we've hit this year is how to cater to livers out under COVID. If it was foreseeable that COVID was continuing with the same levels of restriction for a long time, how would you ensure that livers out are getting as much as the livers in are? There we go.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that we could do or sustain. I think the livers out rep is really valuable when it comes to this. I think it's great, the whole the leaflets that are produced for livers out, and those should definitely be something that is continued. I also loved the kind of social distanced baby ball where packs could be sent to households. That's a great idea as well to get people in the John spirit. But then also I think perhaps something that I would say that could be changed, but I think that there would be a lot of debate around this, would be really trying to somehow get the livers out to be able to have some space in the library. I know that we had it last term when restrictions were a bit more eased, but I think that we need to sort out about how we're looking at the library under lockdown, and the booking system and holding people to their bookings and things like that. And I think that if we got that done efficiently, I think that that is something that we could offer to livers out, because I know that when you are living out, a lot of the time you want to be able to get out of your house. So I think that is something that we could look to improve.
Yep, great. So did you finish there, Alice? I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Thomas, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I realised that I put again question mark, and that sounds like I was being sarky to Molly. I meant me again. But actually, Molly asked a very similar question, so thanks, Alice. I think you've just answered.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions that they'd like to ask? Any more questions at all? Right.
This is the last one. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take Molly's question, and then if there's many more questions after that, I'd like to have a few minutes break just to give Alice time to have a drink of water or something, and Ron as well, just because like it's a lot of talking to do after one after another. Okay, so we'll go with Molly.
Yeah, sorry for making you talk again. So obviously, as president, you will be working both for college and for the SJCR. How will you manage this duality of working both roles at once?
Yeah, I think that I am quite an organised person, to be honest, and I think that both roles are kind of different enough from each other that it'll kind of keep me on my toes. So I think I'll quite like both responsibilities, and maybe perhaps we'll kind of learn separate things from both things, which will help me improve on the other, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think I'll be able to handle it.
Okay, great. So do we have any other questions other than Lewis's? I know Lewis has put me again, but is there any more after Lewis? Because if not, we'll just have Lewis's now and then finish. Or if there's others after that, I'd like to take a few minutes break. So has anyone else got a question that they'd like to ask? No? If you've got a question that you want to ask, just type in the chat, me or again if you've already asked a question. Right. Okay, I'll take that as a no then. So we'll go ahead with Lewis's question as the last question.
Right. Thanks, Josh. So Alice and Ron, as you know, colleges have been impacted on its way it runs things, such as the library closing at an earlier time. How would you seek to ensure that college resources and facilities are back open as quickly as possible in light of COVID restrictions being lifted if that happens during your tenure?
Yeah, I think if restrictions are lifted, then that would be honestly a godsend. But also, I don't think that we should immediately jump into the deep end with it. That's not to say that we should really slowly, gradually, like let people trickle in or whatever. I think that we should reopen things, but with a kind of an air of seriousness. I think it's still important to ask for people to like sanitize, things like that. I think that will be still important for a long time coming. But yeah, if restrictions were lifted, then definitely I would welcome the opportunity to walk from one end of the college to the other without going outside. So that would be great.
Thanks, Alice. So that was the last question. As far as I'm aware, unless someone really has a dying question, then we'll take a break. But yeah, I think that's the last question. So thanks, Alice. I understand that was a lot of speaking, one after another. So I appreciate that. Yeah, so that's all questions done. And so voting for that will open at midnight tonight. So just you guys go on to DU Vote how you normally would, and there'll be the presidential election there, which you can vote. So yeah, thanks, Alice. And I'll pass over to Benji now to finish off.